This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. For those of you that follow American football, you know this year a guy named Patrick Mahomes, a young guy, his second year, essentially a rookie because he really didn't play his first year, is tearing up the NFL. The guy literally has an arm that can throw the football 100 yards in the air. It's insane. And he's just cranking up the touchdowns. His team, I think, has only lost 2 games. Phenomenal season. Might be the MVP of the league. Really great story. That's a little bit of the setup. Like, that's the kind of big picture. That's an interesting story. Now let me take it back a step. He went to a school called Texas Tech. Texas freaking Tech. This is not exactly a big football school. It's become a lot bigger. He surely helped. But the guy that really helped was a guy named Mike Leach. Mike Leach was the coach at Texas Tech a few years back. He got them into the top 10, I think, for the first time. Really made a huge dent on the program nationally. What a great story. Then a bunch of craziness happened. He left coaching for a while. Now he's back. He's back with a school named Washington State. Now this is in the middle of nowhere. Now, after a few years of coaching at Washington State, he has them in the top 10. I think number 7 or number 8. Phenomenal. It just shows that this one particular coach, wherever he goes, seems to bring something. And he has a system, something he calls air raid, which is not unusual these days in the NFL because the teams that are scoring a ton in the NFL are using something very similar. Just pass the ball like nuts. Of course, I'm abbreviating there. I'm shortening it. There's more to it, but that's essentially what's happening. Now, Leach at Washington State, top 10, all of a sudden got some bad press recently. And I thought it was such a great example of where we are all going wrong today. Principle versus opinion. And the opinion was, I mean, maybe there was an element of fact to it, but it was kind of a half fact, a half opinion. All of a sudden, the headlines everywhere said, Mike Leach posted a negative video about Obama, and it cost Washington State $1.6 million in contributions, donations that people were making to the school. They rescinded their donations because Leach had said something or posted a negative video about Obama. Okay, fantastic. It's perfectly in Leach's right to say these things or repost whatever he posted, unless the school says he can't. And it's perfectly in the right of the donors to not give money to the school because their head coach of the football team said something they didn't like politically. But what's interesting about the half nature of this reporting, it doesn't mention the value that a Mike Leach is bringing to this university. Top 10, highest ranking in like 15 years, most wins in like 15 years. What do they think that is worth to the school? Do they think it's worth more than the $1.6 million that supposedly some donors decided to not give? Of course it is. Of course enrollments will have gone up for this school. Of course the notoriety will be huge. Of course the bowl game they are going to will bring in money. So, okay, maybe you don't like Leach. You don't like what he said. But don't put half of the information out there. And half of the information is just saying, because those writers, the propaganda folks out there that control the wires, did not like the fact that he had this political opinion. And so they wanted to slam him. Maybe they could get him fired because donors took back their $1.6 million without mentioning how much money this man has brought to the school by coaching the team to be so successful. Now, if you're listening to me talk about this and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is the point? Well, you might be lost already. The point is, today, how does one look and decide and figure out principle versus opinion? Because so much of what is hitting us today is just that, opinion. 100% opinion. Let me give another example. Jerry Parker is a trader who has been on this podcast. I know his politics to some degree. They are probably more conservative. Annie Duke is a former professional poker player. She has been on this podcast. I think I know her politics too. She probably leans a little more to the left. But if you read their Twitter feeds, what's so interesting about both of them, they're not trying to drown you out only with their personal opinion. They are attempting to give concrete principle that we can all take away regardless of our political stripes. Now, I also know that if I go to Twitter, I can find random billionaires who post all the time opinions. I can't find the principle. It's all about their opinion. I must trust their opinion, just like I must trust the paper that Mike Leach is this awful guy who cost the school $1.6 million without mentioning how much money he has brought to the school. So the random billionaires are out there giving their opinions all the time with no principle. I want the principle. You want the principle. We don't just want opinion. This is what's screwing the world up, especially young people. Young people don't have a good sense of morals, ethics, or principles. You have to know which end is up. How can you begin to figure out anything if you don't have a set of principles? This is why I highly recommend go onto YouTube, find all of the videos you can from the professor, Richard Feynman, the physicist. He breaks things down in the way that we should all break things down. Whatever our problem is, whatever we're trying to figure out, whatever we're dealing with, we need to use the scientific method. We need to observe. We need to gather data. We need to test our assumptions, test our hypotheses, test our theories. Does it all work or does it fail? That's the process. Just trusting anyone in this day and age, when there is so much propaganda, so much bullshit, so much desire to just push you, anyone, to a particular view. How the hell does one even attempt to figure out how it all works if you don't have this kind of scientific method foundation? Again, back to square one. Principles. The scientific method is a part of, or should be a part of, your set of principles, the way that you operate your life. You don't want to be, regardless of your fame, regardless of your money, regardless of how big your notoriety is, you don't want to be that talking magpie who just says your feelings, just says your opinions. I got to tell you, I feel lucky that I came along before the internet, because I can still remember what it was like, at least a little bit pre-internet. Not much these days, honestly. But there's another thing that happened once the internet got started. The internet got started with essentially websites and blogs. And so you felt very journalistic when you would put information out. You had to write something coherent, concrete. Tim Ferriss is a great example of this. Go look at Tim Ferriss's blog posts. They're not really opinion pieces. They're very detailed, informative pieces. I've always had that mindset. Just because when I started in the growth curve of the internet, I always had this sense of justify. Don't just rationalize, but justify. Put forward the evidence. Put forward the evidence. For example, across my world, trend following data. That's the evidence. You might hear somebody else talking about this performance or that performance, but what I loved about trend following is you could see the data. Proof of concept. Back to Richard Feynman. Find something that justifies the test. Nowadays, when you hear, for example, this controversial term, it's not controversial to me, but when you hear the term fake news, many people get so frustrated because they think it has something to do with Trump. Yes, Trump has coined the term to some degree, but we should all be willing to admit that fake news exists. It absolutely exists. And what is a great definition of fake news? Exactly what I'm saying today. Principle versus opinion. Fact versus opinion. Fake news just means opinion. If somebody comes on a news show and they're telling us that 10 people died in a traffic accident, that's news. If somebody comes on and says 10 people died in a traffic accident because Trump's hair is an extra orange glow today, that's opinion. And we're losing sight of that. Here's another great example. If anyone's been paying attention for the last week, look what's happening to Mark Zuckerberg. Right now, we have major media organizations falling over themselves to tell us that Mark Zuckerberg is responsible for an advertisement for a child bride in Africa. Now, that is certifiably nuts. Mark Zuckerberg is the owner, CEO of a major company. Basically, the company allows all of us to put content on it. To hold Zuckerberg responsible for what one person or one small group did in Africa in any moment in time, to hold him responsible is pure insanity. Anybody that holds Zuckerberg responsible for an advertisement or a one-off child bride African situation, you seriously need to go see a doctor. That is not Mark Zuckerberg's responsibility. Now, of course, if there is a huge number of child brides being auctioned off on Facebook, and Facebook does nothing about it, that's a problem for Facebook. But to find one example and then extrapolate that out to then say that Zuckerberg is an evil guy is the definition of insanity. That is completely off the rails. I might have different politics than Zuckerberg, but I salute his success. I salute what he has built. Oh, you don't like it? Don't use it. Don't use it. It's a free damn service. Everyone knows when you go into a free service that's tracking you and giving you ads, everyone knows what the name of the game is. Oh, you don't know? Bullshit. You know exactly what it is. Again, another example. Principle versus opinion. The principle is Zuckerberg and his team heard about this one child bride situation in Africa and removed it. The opinion side is 24/7 news people decrying Zuckerberg as an evil guy who essentially, and this is what they are positioning him as, essentially promotes the auctioning off of child brides in Africa. Does anyone stop for a second and just say, what the hell is going on? This is nuts. Because what's really nuts is the groups, the organizations that are truly working at us all to not think about principles, to not think about facts. They don't want you to think at all. That's the whole name of the game. Don't think. Trust us. Don't think. Trust us. What a great t-shirt. Don't think. Trust us. That's not where we want to be. That is just not where we want to be. I don't care what your definition of life success is, where you're trying to go. I mean, if you're trying to go in the markets, if you're trying to be successful as a trader or as an investor, how the hell can you approach it, honestly, if you look in the mirror, with anything less than pure principles? Because if you're going into the game and you're just trusting some one voice to tell you how it is at all times, man, it's game over. People often ask me, they say, Mike, where should we start? Where's a good place to go? If you want to see my best take, my widest take on many of the issues that I talk about on this podcast, the 5th edition of my book, Trend Following, that is my best take. 220,000 words. Get the hardcover. You can absolutely use it as a weapon, even if you don't read it. And I got to share something cool with you. I was in Singapore recently in the last few days, and there was this great bookstore on Orchard Road in the Takashimaya Mall, Japanese mall in Singapore, this great bookstore. And I walk in, and of course, as an author, you sometimes want to see, gosh, are your books on the shelf? Now, look, there's hardly any bookstores in America, so it kind of sucks, right? There's not really a great chance to check that kind of stuff out. But this one particular bookstore in Singapore is one of the best in the world. It's absolutely fabulous. You could browse in there all day long. It's got the newest stuff, but they also keep, older stuff on the shelf. So anyways, I find the investment section and I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. There's my Turtle Trader book, face out. I walk 2 meters. There's my Trend Following book, face out. I look up. There's my little book of trading. I'm like, this is damn so cool. Not just to feed my ego, but what I love about that more than anything, what it says about Singapore. Perhaps the wealthiest country in the world. I think it is now. And I'm not saying my books alone will give you wealth. There's plenty of information and insights out there. But I love the fact that a place like Singapore puts so many cool investment books. And it wasn't just mine. All the great investment books are there. A full selection that you can see. Some bad ones too, but I won't go into those. But I love the fact that a place like Singapore, and they have treated me very well by supporting my books over the year. I just love being able to walk into a bookstore and see that at least one place in the world gets it. They get capitalism. They get economics. They get making money. And that's a good feeling. Every time I'm in Singapore, that's a good damn feeling. And if you have never been to Singapore, if you have never been to Southeast Asia, and I've said this on this podcast many times, what are you waiting for? It's time to go. Get on a plane. Get the heck out of the continental United States of America and come see something interesting, something that will spur the imagination, perhaps spur you to get with it, to get at it. Because the world's a big damn place. Competition drives it all. You can't sit still. You got to keep moving. But along the way and bringing it full circle, if you're going to keep moving, if you're going to make something big happen, principles. Find your principles. Don't trust opinions. Don't trust my opinions. Don't trust anyone's opinions. Take what they say, and as Reagan said about Gorbachev, trust but verify. That's the best you got. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, Trend Following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.